Hello, fabulous scholars. Welcome back to the Canterbury Tales. So, the pilgrims have been riding for a while, and Chaucer is going to skip a couple of the tales that were rather boring. He writes, "We had the martyrdom of St. Cecilia and the trials of Constance, who seems to have converted half the known world to Christianity without me ever hearing of her before. The monk then undertook to tell us the entire history of the world. An over-ambitious project, I thought, but it did help to pass the time. We were making poor progress on our journey, perhaps because of interrupting black cats. Oh, on account of the cook's determination to fall off his horse every 5 minutes, we had to keep stopping to pick him up. We might just as well have poured a bucket of water into the saddle. He poured straight out of it again. Oh, that cook. If the road had not been so muddy, I swear he would have flattened the top of his head. To keep him occupied, we got him to tell us a story. But the cook just didn't know where to stop. When almost everyone in his story had been hanged or locked up, and the cook had just fallen asleep contentedly on his horse, we were glad enough for the peace and quiet. Kent, which is the area in England they're traveling through, flowed past us to right and left, bearing its flotsam, a farmhouse, a spinney, a village, a cow, a windmill, the church. Though we were frightfully weary by the end of our third day, our quarrels were still spirited and our friendships firm fixed. My, but this journey has done me good already, said the plowman, and there was a gentle surge of voices in agreement. Well, of course it's done us good, said the merchant. It got us away from our wives. Since half the people traveling with us were in holy orders, that means they were monks or nuns, this did not meet with much support, right? Because they had to promise never to get married. And it seemed to anger Harry. You won't complain when she's there waiting for you at the garden gate when you get home. Waiting at the garden gate? Oh, my dear Harold, how have you lived so long and kept such a romantic notion of married life? Sneered the merchant. I was widowed early, said Harry sadly, and I hold it unmannerly if you were to tell us about your wife's failings without her here to defend herself. Tell you her faults? The merchant's beard jabbed the air like the fangs of a serpent. Oh, I wouldn't dare. She might hear me. She's got better ears for eavesdropping than an owl in the tree. But I'll tell you this, I would give the coat off my back to be a bachelor again. Do you realize only one merchant in 6 makes any money these days? And I'm one of them. Much good that it does me. My wife spends every penny. You shouldn't have married such a young one, said the sea captain, nodding sagely or wisely. That's where you went wrong. Oh, that's it entirely. I always buy for value, you know. So I chose a young bride to give it maximum wear, you understand. Worst investment I ever made. Proof. Take the witness box and give us your case for bachelorhood, said Harry, doggedly sticking to the point. And if you can't tell us a story to prove your case, we'll call you a perjured witness, which means he's a liar. The widow from Bath cast on Harry a look of undisguised admiration and for once said nothing at all. I think the merchant was a fool to tell the story he did. At the end of it, everyone had a much higher regard for May than they did for January. Oh, but you haven't heard it yet, so you don't know what I'm talking about. Well, here, judge for yourself. So the story is Old January and Young May. Those are the characters. All his life, January had lived a bachelor. That means he's not getting married. And right healthy, rich, and cheerful he was to prove it. But in his old age, he took it to his head to marry. I've missed out on a lot, he said. And though his friends tried hard to dissuade him, his mind was made up. He furnished his house with all the soft and breakable things women like to have about: vases, curtains, servants, cradles, and the like, and he built for it a garden with a high wall. Inside the garden were such delights as could only be rumored about, for no one but January and his bride would be allowed beyond its gate. Lastly, January chose for himself a young woman called May and married her. Every day they would walk in the garden among the peacocks and the fountains, the hedge mazes, and the rock walls brimming with alyssum and lilies of the valley. Their scents were heady, and the grass was lush under their feet. Their lips were always sticky with the juice of fruits from the trees, and the dew was always wet on the hems of May's petticoats. That means her long skirts. But January was too old to be lying in the wet grass, and rheumatism plagued him if he walked too long by the pools. May would have liked to be with a younger friend in the garden. In short, she would have liked to be with Damien. Damien was a servant boy, not 2 days over 16 when May came to the house as a bride. He was forever pestering her to be allowed inside the garden, and he was so young and so curly and so much fun to talk to, she had a mind to let him see it. But how? She did not have to wait long for a solution. In the evening of his life, January was suddenly plunged into an early night. He went blind. Oh, how glad he was now he had built his garden and found a wife. He wagged his head at his friends and told them, "Where would I be now without an arm to lean on and guide me through the perfumes and sounds of my little garden? Eh? Eh? Where are you? Are you still here?" Damien's chance had come. May winked an eye at him as he crept into the garden ahead of January, supped at the fountain, and climbed a pear tree to eat its fruit. May did not see, and neither did Damien, that there were two others already in the tree. Invisible to human eyes, the gods Pluto and Proserpine, that means Hades and Persephone in the Greek myths, sat talking in its branches. Damien stepped unknowingly on the god's transparent hand, and Pluto, Hades, snarled inaudibly, "Do you see what young people are coming to these days? Trespassing, stealing pears. I blame that girl. She encouraged the young brat. Where's a woman's sense of duty to her husband?" "Stop fretting," said his wife, the goddess. "Old January should never have married such a young wife. How can he give her the fun she needs? This boy here would make a much fitter husband." And Proserpine ruffled Damien's hair, though he thought it was merely the breeze. Oblivious, he sat between them, eating pears. The juice ran down his chin. "Oh, I wish I could have one of those pears," said May, licking her lips at the sight of Damien's pleasure. "Pears?" said old January. "Are there pears? Oh dear, if I could only see one, I would pick it for you." "That's all right, dear. If you crouch down, I can climb onto your shoulders, and then you can lift me up into the branches." And she waved to Damien. Pluto struck his forehead. "What are things coming to? I've a good mind to put a stop to her mischief." "Then I'll put a stop to yours," said his wife. So here's old January lifting up May into the pear tree. At the very moment when Damien and May had their heads together in the tree and were eating pears, Pluto laid a magic finger to old January's eyes and gave him back his sight. "Oh, wailed the old man. "So these are the thanks I get for marrying a young wife. My friends were right, weren't they? What's the meaning of this? Why are you helping that boy steal my pears?" For May, it was an awkward moment. It might have proved impossible if Proserpine hadn't whispered in the girl's ear. Suddenly May laughed and clapped her hands. "Oh, praise be to the gods, it worked!" What worked, you mischievous madam?" January staggered under the weight of his wife as she sat cheering on his shoulders. "My trick To restore your sight, of course. I went to a magician, dearest, and I told him I could not bear to see you afflicted with blindness. He told me there was no cure but for me to slap the face of a boy sitting in your very own pear tree. Dazzled by the sunlight after weeks of darkness, January blinked and squinted up at his wife, his face screwed up with doubt.
Don't you believe her, whispered Pluto.
I didn't see you slap any boy. All I saw was the two of you eating my pears in my pear tree. Mighty friendly you seemed about it, too. You saw what? A look of utter amazement swept May's face, and then a glimmer of understanding. Oh, I know why that was. Getting your sight back after being blind is a little bit like waking up after a deep sleep. You don't see things clearly, first of all. Perhaps your eyes will only get back to normal gradually. Then, to Damien's great astonishment, she turned and slapped his juice-sticky face. Oh, I saw it, declared January, leaping and cavorting about under the tree, his wife clinging to his hair. Oh, I saw it that time, my wife. My eyes are getting better. Oh, May, how could I ever thank you for giving me back my sight? Through the branches of the tree, Damien climbed down to the ground, bitten by the first pangs of stomachache from having eaten so many pears, and nursing his sore cheek. The god Pluto put his hands on his hips disgustedly and said, bah. But then his wife caught his eye and winked and giggled and reached out to him the pear that she was eating. They slipped away, hand in invisible hand. Be careful, my love, said May as she climbed down off her husband's shoulders. The magician did tell me to warn you. Your eyesight may come and go for the first few weeks, or rather you may think you see the most extraordinary things that aren't happening at all. You will be patient, won't you? Oh, yes, my dear, I will. For instance, I think I see you even now, arm in arm with that same boy, patting his cheek. But I know it's just my eyes playing tricks on me. Yes, dear, just your eyes, said May. And good luck to her, I say, said the widow in the hat. I like everybody to be happy at the end of a story. That's the most important thing. The merchant snarled bitterly. It's only in stories that people end up happy. The sea captain put an arm around the merchant's shoulders and pointed towards the horizon. Well, that's today's happy ending. One day at a time, eh, old friend? We all looked in the direction the captain was pointing. Every detail of the countryside had been blotted out by dusk, and the sky was as dark as Gabardine. But 2 or 3 miles away, rising out of the gloom like the mast of a ship, was the spire of the cathedral at Canterbury. Our horses' ears, like little church spires themselves, pricked toward the cathedral. They can smell their dinner, said the prioress Eglantine, patting her stomach. Perhaps, said Brother John, patting his horse. Scholars will find out how all this ends and see who the winner is. Next time, remember to think about your favorite story so far. See if it matches the winner. Till then, bye.